I just went on a date with a guy who tried to rob me. 2 years ago, I came home from my father's funeral and walked into a nightmare. As I opened my apartment door, a man holding a crowbar emerged from my kitchen, carrying my TV. Living in the city, I knew robberies weren't rare, but I'd never imagined this. He dropped the TV in his panic, gripping the crowbar like a weapon. He yelled at me to empty my pockets, but I was too stunned to move. The past few days had been unbearable, burying my father, handling the grief, and now, this. My body betrayed me, and I broke down crying, not out of fear, but because life had just reached its lowest point. I handed him my wallet through tears and crumpled to the floor, hugging my knees. Between sobs, I told him to take whatever he wanted. Then, something unexpected happened. He froze, staring at me. Slowly, he lowered the crowbar, sat down next to me, and began to apologize. He said he'd lost his job, his mom was sick and needed medicine, and they were homeless. As I wailed for everything I'd lost, my dad, my peace, my sense of safety, he told me it would be okay. For 10 minutes, the man who had planned to rob me sat on my floor, comforting me. Eventually, he stood, returned my wallet, and put my TV back in its spot. He begged me not to call the police and bolted, leaving the crowbar behind. 2 days later, I came home from work and found him sitting outside my door. My stomach dropped. I pulled out my phone, but he didn't look threatening this time, just remorseful. He handed me a small bowl wrapped in foil and said his mom had made me soup to apologize. Anger and fear overtook me. I slapped the bowl from his hands, and it shattered on the ground. I told him to leave before I called the cops. He left, looking crushed. I left the soup and broken bowl outside as a warning. Months later, a note arrived in my mail slot. He wrote that his mom had passed away, he'd found a job, and he wanted to repay me for what he'd done. He left his address and invited me to break into his apartment if I wanted payback. He joked that he didn't have much worth stealing. I didn't respond, but curiosity got the better of me. One day, I walked by his building. As luck would have it, he saw me. He ran over, apologizing again, showing me his mom's funeral program as proof of his story. I don't know why, but I believed him. Over the next year, we slowly built a strange sort of friendship. He worked hard, enrolled in community college, and often sought my help with his history class. Despite this, I couldn't fully trust him. He knew it too, but he never pushed me. Tonight, though, something changed. Over coffee, he suggested cooking for me, and on a whim, I agreed. We grabbed groceries and went back to my apartment, the same apartment he once tried to rob. I was shaking with nerves, but he noticed and gently squeezed my hand. He cooked an incredible dinner, and we sat on the floor watching a movie on the TV he'd once tried to steal. We joked about it, laughing in a way I hadn't in years. Then he admitted he missed his mom, and I gave him a hug. When he left, I sat alone, overwhelmed by everything we'd shared. Somehow, the man who once broke into my home had become someone I trusted. Life has a strange way of twisting paths together. People aren't defined by their worst moments. Some just get dealt a cruel hand, but sometimes those same people find a way to change.